Here I have some vegetables that have already been cooked. So this is a mixture of a lot of greens that kind of went wilted already. So there's some kale, there's some Swiss chard in there, and I stir-fried it with some onion and some ginger and a little bit of soy sauce. And I actually had this for lunch. So this is my lunch leftovers. And that's one thing you do is you can just have a leftover stir-fry, chop it up in small pieces and use it as dumpling filling. Now what I'm going to add to this, and this is a preview for next week's workshop, where we're going to make soy milk, is the pulp from making soy milk. So this is, in Japanese, it's called okara, or it's just a soy pulp. So it's the leftovers from making soy milk. So I'm just going to dump all that in there. And to this, I'm going to add a little bit of soy sauce. As well as a small amount of cornstarch. And the reason for the cornstarch is just to help the fillings stick together. So this is equivalent to about 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. We're going to mix this all together. And you can use whatever you like in the dumpling filling. So for instance, you can use cooked lentils, crumbled tofu, meat. So the pork dumplings is a bit of a classic dumpling, but if you don't eat meat, then there are lots of different vegetarian options. So you can see from this mixture, it's around a 1-to-1 ratio of some form of a combination of vegetables with some form of a protein. Or if you don't want the protein in there, you can just use all vegetables. It really is very flexible what you put in here. It's just about anything goes, as long as you like to eat it. So it's a great way to use leftovers. It's a great way to use greens, especially those that don't look so appetizing anymore. If you cut it up into small pieces and put it into a dumpling, no one will notice. Okay, so I'll set this aside. One word of caution with making hot water dough, you are using boiling water, so just be very, very, very careful. So now the water has cooled off enough, so I can start kneading it. And then when it's like a pretty well-formed dough, then you can just move on to a cutting board. I'm gonna roll this into a log. Cut some small squares, little pieces like that. So I'll just do a few to show. And then with each of these, we're going to make a ball. Then we're going to roll this ball into a circle. And as you can see, it doesn't have to necessarily be a perfect circle, or at least when I make it, it's not a perfect circle. The other thing too is if you don't feel like making the dough from scratch, you can always just buy dough from the grocery store and then still use your filling. But sometimes it's fun to try making your own dough. And then to each of these, you can add a small spoon of filling. And so the way to wrap, there's a lot of different ways. So the way that I learned is to fold the dough towards the middle. And this is where, as you can see, having a perfectly round shaped dough helps. But even when it's not perfectly round, it's also fine. We've got some oil that's been heating this pan. And you want to heat it over about medium heat. And then I'm going to put each of these dumplings in. We're going to let these cook for a bit until they get a little bit brown. So you can kind of, at least I can hear them, they're starting to sizzle a little bit. And this method of cooking, it's called fry steam, because what we're doing is we're going to cook the bottom of the dumplings here on the pan so that they're crispy. And then we're going to add some water into the pan and then cover it up and let it steam. So that is what's going to cook the top part.
What kind of oil do you use for frying your pots de cruz dumplings?
This here, I just use olive oil. You can use any vegetable oil.
Okay.
Yeah. The canola or sunflower oil probably be a little bit better because it has a higher smoke point, but I get away with using olive oil because that just happens to be what I have in my kitchen.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I usually cook with grapeseed oil and I wasn't sure if that would be all right.
Yeah, if its smoke point is comparable to, say, olive oil, then it should be okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Super. Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Great question.
Brenda,
Yep.
for the meat eaters, maybe they can add some some bacon or pork or stream anything in the filling for the dumpling.
Yeah, you definitely can. Those are all great options. I'm just going to show it's starting a little bit to brown. So it's getting there, but not quite. For this next part, it's a very good idea to have your lid ready because as soon as the water goes in, it creates a lot of steam and you do not want to burn yourself. Again, this is the theme of the dumplings. Don't burn yourself making the dough and don't burn yourself making the dumplings. So what I like to do is I like to put the pot lid like this, like a bit of a shield, and then I carefully add a small amount of water and then cover it up, just like that. So that way, so you can see the steam is forming. I'm not sure how well that shows up in the camera, but what
you can see it
here, there's a lot of steam forming. So that is what is cooking the tops of the dumplings. So I leave it here, and when you notice that the steam is starting to disappear and there's not as much coming out of it, it means that the dumplings are very close to being done. So I usually just wait until I don't see this little billow anymore. So this step is quite quick. It doesn't take very long at all. And then once most of the little steam billows disappear, this might be still a bit early. Yep, there's still some steam in there.
Also, we can steam them or boil them.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So if you want, you can just put them into a steamer basket and then steam them, or you can put them into boiling water and boil them. This is just my favorite way of doing it because you get the crispy bottom, but you also get the steamed top.
If you make a lot, maybe can we just freeze them up for later on?
Yes, you can. So if you make a lot of them, what you can do is after you've made them, put them onto like a tray, kind of like this type of a tray, and then put it into the freezer on the tray until it's frozen solid, and then put them into a bag, like a freezer bag.
Bag, something like that.
And the reason you want to use the tray is because the dumplings, if you don't have the tray, they'll stick together if you just put it into a freezer. So by having a tray, it allows you to have the dumplings not stick together once you have frozen them. Okay, so I'm gonna take this lid off.
Well done.
So you can see here that the water is just about all gone. And then the dumpling itself, the bottom, it's kind of has a
Looks
little
crispy.
Wow, looks good.